Hello and welcome back to another shadowing practice, or welcome if it's your first time. My name's Claire and I'm an English teacher and a native speaker from the United States. Now, some of you have been in the comments saying that my introductions in these videos are too long. So I hear you, and I'm gonna keep this one super short. If this is your first time joining me for shadowing practice, check out my shadowing practice playlist, which I'll link here, and you can watch any of those introductions on those videos where I explain how this video will work, what the expectations are, what shadowing is if you don't know. But for this one, we're gonna jump right in. English made easy with Claire. All right, so a big request from a lot of you is the ED endings of verbs. So the focus for this shadowing practice is to take a look at all three sounds that the ED ending in English can have. As you may already know, English is not a phonetic language, which is why shadowing is such a useful practice, particularly for English. And so when you see an ED at the end of a word, it doesn't always sound the same. But good news for you, there are some rules that I can share with you that will tell you which sound the ending of a certain word takes. So the shadowing practice I have for you today has all three ED ending sounds. I'm going to point them out to you. We're going to practice pronouncing them together. First, you're going to repeat after me. The other day, I decided to bake some cookies because I'd invited a friend over. Your turn. Let's say it again. The other day, I decided to bake some cookies because I'd invited a friend over. I then started cleaning the kitchen and the rest of the apartment. I then started cleaning the kitchen and the rest of the apartment. Because I wanted the place to look nice. Because I wanted the place to look nice. Okay, so in this paragraph, we have 4 verbs that end in ed, and they all take the same sound, id, id. If I say it very slow, decided, invited, started, wanted. So you can hear that each ending is id. Now, you'll know a verb takes this sound as the ending if it ends in a T or a D. So take the verb decide. Okay, it ends in an E, but it ends in a D sound. The E is silent, right? So because it ends in this D sound, in the past tense form, it's going to take the id sound ending. Same with the verb invite. Again, it has a silent E, it ends with a T sound, so it takes the id ending. Start and want end in T's, end with the letter T, so it takes this id ending. Now, you may have noticed I didn't pronounce a hard T when the verb has a T, and that's because in American English, we tend to drop the T if it ends in a word, or if it is in the middle of a word, it becomes a flap T, so it sounds like a D. Invited, started. Now, the word wanted, this one would be maybe a little bit of an exception. We would drop the T altogether. Wanted, wanted, you could pronounce it. Or I probably would pronounce the T, wanted. A very soft T, wanted, wanted. Okay, so there's your first rule. You can remember, if a verb ends in a D or a T, or a D or a T sound, then it would take the id ending. So let's shadow this paragraph together. Say it at the same time as I do. Ready? The other day, I decided to bake some cookies because I'd invited a friend over. I then started cleaning the kitchen and the rest of the apartment because I wanted the place to look nice. Now, before we move on to the next section, I want to point out a couple phrases in here just for a learning experience in general for English. So first we have the phrase the other day, and that's just a general term we use to say a few days ago or a day in the recent past. So you could say, the other day I went grocery shopping, or the other day I saw a movie. You're not telling us what specific day it is, but you're just generally saying that it happened in the recent past. So that's a great phrase to know. And then the other expression I wanted to point out to you was I'd invited a friend over. This word over, what does that mean? Well, it implies that you invited a friend to your house. If you say, I invited a friend over, it means the same as I invited a friend to my place. Or you could say, I invited a friend over to my place. Or simply, I invited a friend over. All right, let's move on to another ed ending sound. Repeat after me. My friend had recently moved and now lived nearby. My friend had recently moved and now lived nearby. She arrived right on time. Again, she arrived right on time. I opened the door, smiled, and told her to come in. I opened the door, smiled, and told her to come in. Okay, so maybe you've already noticed what sound these ed endings take. Moved, lived, arrived, opened, smiled. The ed ending is simply pronounced as d, d. And you can know this because verbs that end with a voiced sound take this d ending. So the verbs move, live, and arrive all have the voiced v sound. So you can actually make a sound on those consonants. V. So that's what makes it voiced. Open, we can make sound on the n sound, so it's voiced. And a little bit trickier is smile. Ooh, the L sound, yeah, it's voiced. We can make sound on it. Because they end in these voiced sounds, we know that when they are in the past tense in this ed form, the ed ending sounds like d. Now, in rapid speech, we're not going to overly pronounce the d sound, right? You may have noticed I didn't read it as my friend recently moved and now lived nearby. It almost sounds like I drop the D ending. But of course, it's useful for you to know that these verbs are not moved or livid, okay? That's incorrect. It's moved and lived. But in rapid speech, the D is almost dropped. Live nearby, lived nearby. It almost sounds like I dropped the D sound entirely and that I'm just saying live nearby. You can think of it that way. Definitely, you still want to have the intention of speaking in the past tense so that the intention of the past tense comes across. Arrived right on time. Opened the door. Okay, let's shadow this paragraph. My friend had recently moved and now lived nearby. She arrived right on time. I opened the door, smiled, and told her to come in. An expression I want to point out here is come in. So if someone does come to your house, you can use that expression. Come in, right? That's an invitation for them to enter the house. Come on in, you could also say. Come in. Now, before we move on to the final ED ending sound that we can have in English. If you are enjoying this video, one of the best ways you can support the work I do is to simply click the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It does help a lot so that I can continue to make these videos for you guys. If you do want to help fund this channel a little bit more, consider becoming a member here on my channel. So if you click the join button below, you'll get even more information about what it means to become a member, how you can support the work I do. And I'm so grateful to those of you who are members and who help fund this channel so that I can continue to make these shadowing practices for you. My goal is definitely to make these videos more frequently so that I can continue helping as many of you as possible, especially because you guys express how helpful these videos are. If you're definitely wanting more shadowing videos with me that you can access right now, I have good news for you. I have started doing live shadowing practices in my online English community, Next Level English. So the link to check all of that out and to join is in the description of this video. When you become a member, you will be able to get a live shadowing practice with me every week. If you can't join live, then there will be a recorded version of it, so you can be guaranteed a weekly shadowing practice with me. And of course, you get so many other benefits being a community member, like having speaking practice on our live group calls. There's a ton of exclusive videos on there, my complete pronunciation and business English courses. You get access to a supportive community of English learners. It's a lot of fun. So if you're at all interested, check it out in the link below. Okay, with that out of the way, let's keep going with our shadowing practice and our final ED ending sound. Repeat after me. She looked around and asked, "Is something burning?" She looked around and asked, "Is something burning?" I stopped what I was doing and noticed I'd completely forgotten about the cookies I'd baked. I stopped what I was doing and noticed I'd completely forgotten about the cookies I'd baked. Okay, so the verbs ending in ed we have here are looked, asked, stopped, and baked. Maybe you have already noticed, you can already hear these ed endings sound like t. And have you noticed what they all have in common? What is the rule here? Well, if you said that all of these verbs end in unvoiced sounds, then you would be correct. So before we had the verbs that end in the voiced sound, they took the d ending. If the ending is unvoiced, they take the t ending. So look, k, k, k. You can't make sound on that consonant sound. Stop, p, p, p. That one's also unvoiced. Notice, s, unvoiced. So if they have an unvoiced ending, they take the t sound. So let's go ahead and shadow this paragraph together. Say it with me. She looked around and asked, "Is something burning?" I stopped what I was doing and noticed I'd completely forgotten about the cookies I'd baked. Repeat after me. We ended up going out for some cake and coffee instead. We ended up going out for some cake and coffee instead. That's the last time I try to bake myself. That's the last time I try to bake myself. Okay, so we have one verb in this section that ends in ed, ended, ended. And I want you to let me know in the comments which ending it takes and why? Okay, let's shadow this final section together. We ended up going out for some cake and coffee instead. That's the last time I try to bake myself. All right, guys, so like every shadowing practice, let's end this one reading the entire story all the way through. This part of the video is super helpful to repeat many, many times until you feel comfortable with all of the pronunciation and specifically the verbs ending in ed, which was our focus today. But of course, just the overall intonation and flow of my speaking as a native speaker. If you match that, you will sound more natural as well. Here we go. The other day, I decided to bake some cookies because I'd invited a friend over. I then started cleaning the kitchen and the rest of the apartment because I wanted the place to look nice. My friend had recently moved and now lived nearby. She arrived right on time. I opened the door, smiled, and told her to come in. She looked around and asked, "Is something burning?" I stopped what I was doing and noticed I'd completely forgotten about the cookies I'd baked. We ended up going out for some cake and coffee instead. That's the last time I tried to bake myself. All right, I hope that shadowing practice cleared up some of your questions about the verbs ending in ed. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.